Good evening everyone, it is Christine here and I'm back to share my finishing off of my Tree of Life, which I've created as part of Roxy's Journal of Stitchery down the garden path, and the prompt we had was a tree or a bird's nest or both. I've done bird's nests in some of my other pieces, which you can see in my other videos, and so I wanted to create a Tree of Life symbol for this particular prompt. And I have been busy working away on it. You can see an initial video where I showed how I got the image. This was my sort of inspiration image, which I transferred over onto this piece of vintage cloth using the window tracing method, but you can see that in the earlier part 1 video, and I started stitching. Now I had some great suggestions for different stitches to use. In the end I just used just a back stitch, so going forward and then coming back to just make a continuous one. Because I was using this beautiful variegated thread, which I can actually really highly recommend. It's one I got secondhand from the sewing lair, but it wasn't sort of pre-used before I got it. Milford Satin, so I don't know if it's still made. It says 2-ply, 50 grams. But it just has lovely variegation, as you can see here. And it just meant that I used one ball of yarn for the tree, and then I've just used one type of thread, and I think this might be a silk thread. I got it secondhand from Melanie from Purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles. So I don't know what it is, but again, this is beautiful variegated, and I'm not sure if you can see, but you get ones that almost look like the sort of changing of the colours of autumn leaves. And so it goes from green through orange. You can see it again in that one up there. So that's what I have used, and it's meant, yeah, just two threads has created all of this. And so now I'm just proceeding to do my final leaves. Now, something I used my friction marker when I was tracing it on, and the benefit of a friction marker is you can erase it with either a hairdryer or an iron and running that over. Now, once I'd done all of my tree, besides the two leaves that I'd done initially, I decided I didn't want to have all the leaves that were drawn in the design that you see here. So if you have the look at the two of them side by side, I've actually gone with smaller leaves and less leaves around. And the benefit of the friction marker was I was able to erase all the leaves, and then I just went back and drew them where I wanted them, including just sort of getting the sizing of them that I wanted. So that's been really, really good. So I thought I'll show you the method I've settled on for my leaves. I've kind of refined it as I've gone along. What I do is I come up the center and do usually one stitch up the center from the bottom, one stitch back down the center from the top, and then one stitch between those 2 points in the middle of the leaf. And then I use the little holes, so the bottom hole where I created that first stitch, and I do a stitch up the side of the leaf, and then I sort of come from around that same spot and do a stitch up the side of the other side, and then I go to the middle spot where the 2 sort of threads meet. And again, I take a stitch up in that sort of way that a leaf has sort of pointing up bits from the center. And I do the same at the point where the 2 threads meet again further up the leaf. So that gives me a bit of a structure for the leaf and the angles that I need to then achieve with the rest of the stitching. And then I just start to fill in between those stitches that I've made, because they kind of give me the structure so I know how far out I'm needing to take them, etc. So this one's going to be a nice goldy orange because we've got that thread, that bit of the variegation thread happening there. So I hope you're all doing well. For many of us, we had Mother's Day on the weekend. And so here we had my mum and dad, and Alex's mum and dad and brother and sister-in-law over for lunch. So, oops, and I've just unthreaded my needle with my dry fingers, even though I just put hand cream on. So for lunch we had a beautiful, just very simple food. Just made a vegetable soup and had it bubbling away on the stove all morning, so all the flavours had sort of melded beautifully together. I had some lovely baby carrots from our farm box delivery, fresh from Gippsland. Beautiful turnips, big turnips, which give a lovely flavour and texture to veggie soups. Capsicum, onion. What else was in the soup? Oh, silver beet and the big stems of the silver beet. And then I like to put my dried Italian herbs in, plus fresh parsley. Just use a vegetable stock because Alex's dad is a vegetarian. Yeah, it was just a bit of smoky paprika, a little bit of curry powder as well, just enough that you can't even tell there's curry powder in there. It just adds to that sort of that layering of flavours. And then for those that watch my videos, you'll know we've got a fantastic French bakery near us. And so I got beautiful baguettes, turned some of them into garlic herby bread. Nothing like those horrible sort of supermarket ones that are all puppy and sort of, yeah, not that delicious. When you make it yourself, oh my goodness, it was so good. We ate so much bread, so we had those. We had little jalapeno bagels, again from the same bakery. They make a focaccia that's almost like a Middle Eastern risen bread. Just so delicious, airy, but yeah, just a lovely texture. And they put caramelised onions and nigella seeds on the top of that. So that was super delish. So as you can see here, I've just filled in between all the bits, and I'm just putting a few little last stitches in. When you've got the friction marking around it, sometimes it's hard to tell if you've missed any spots, but if you do, you can always sort of come back and get them once you do the final iron. But also, again, it doesn't really worry me if the leaf looks a little bit sort of raggedy, because in nature they would be. Some of them get a bit raggedy, particularly as the tree might be starting to lose some of its leaves. Here I'm going to do 4 stitches rather than 3 as I go up the middle, because the leaf is a bit bigger than the last one, marginally. Hopefully you can see okay. I'm just trying to get myself in a position where I can also see without the camera stand in the way. So again from the bottom. So that was entree. Oh, and we had a beautiful multigrain bread as well, which is my dad's favourite. So a seedy multigrain from the bakery, beautiful and crusty. And really in winter, like some soup and some bread, that is pretty awesome. But then I also, for main course, made a caramelised pumpkin and wild mushroom. Well, they're mushrooms from beautiful gourmet mushrooms from a farm in Gippsland as well. A family-run business where they grow all these gorgeous different mushrooms, so you can get a punnet that has all different ones in it. And so made a... was it a fettuccine? Yeah, it was the pastas of fettuccine, and had that, yeah, with the caramelised pumpkin, with burnt butter or brown butter, part of the, I guess, the coating for the pasta. Lots of parmesan, lots of herbs, again more parsley, a bit of nutmeg. What else did I have in there? I'm trying to remember. That may have been it. Yeah, it doesn't need a lot when it's just those beautiful flavours and just that richness of the brown butter or burnt butter. Just so nutty and just yum, butter, yum. And again, a bit more bread. Everyone was loving the bread, so we ate most of the bread, which was pretty amazing. It's like, I put out a fair bit. I was like, oh, I'm sure we won't get through all this, but we did. So that was main course. And then dessert was something that we've come to enjoy as a extended family. 3 different flavours of gourmet ice cream, just in an ice cream tub, and ice cream cones, various sort of toppings for them, and some fresh berries, so everyone could kind of make their own dessert with whatever flavours they wanted, whatever toppings. If they wanted a cone, they could have a cone. So it's where we get to be kids again, and just, yeah. This time we didn't have any kids. We did do this when my brother and sister-in-law and the nephews were over, and it was a big hit with the kids. In fact, I think they had a repeat performance one day when they came round to do a sewing afternoon, which was so much fun. I don't think I ever shared any photos or video from that. But it was so nice that my nephews and niece were so excited to come and do crafting with me, and we spent a lovely day walking around the Wilson Botanic Gardens as well. Well, not the whole day, we just went in the afternoon and then came back and, yeah, did crafting. But yeah, ice cream I think is always a hit. Hard to go wrong with ice cream. And then if you've seen my other video, I made some little brooches for my mum and for Alex's mum, and did thread stitching over this beautiful floral pansy fabric that had like a gold outline on the flowers, and just, yeah, used a number of different colours of threads to stitch over the design. And they were a big hit as well. I've still got to make one for myself because I absolutely love them. Really happy with that. So if you haven't seen that video and want an easy craft to do, definitely recommend it. I'm sure you'll have some fabric in your stash that you can use. Okay, so I'm there, and I'll just pop over here, I reckon. As you can see with this one down here, I kind of redrew the shape a little bit as I looked at it. And that's the benefit of the friction marker, that you can do that. Oops. Just make that. I might turn it around a smidgeroo, make it a bit easier for myself. So tell me, what have you been crafting, or what are you working on as you're watching this video? I've got to check soon and see if they've put out the next prompt for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery. Usually it's a bit later in the evening, but I thought, no, I must finish off this prompt before I get excited and start contemplating the next one, because I've been doing quite a few other projects recently. You would have seen me getting excited about hexies, patchwork hexies. Definitely want to get back to those. I've got a heap that I'd glued but haven't yet done the thread basting on, so that's high on the list to get back to. I was then working on and completed my little scrappy slow stitch snail. Again, I've done a video on that. That's a lot of fun. A new little technique to try, where you can use micro tiny scraps to create, well, in my case, a snail, but you could apply the technique to whatever you wanted to create, a sort of a micro mosaic style fabric collage with. Okay, I think that thread's getting a bit short, so I'll just tie it off. So it's been pleasing. I thought I might be sort of running low. I wasn't sure how much of this thread it would actually take, but I've still got heaps here, and then I've got another bundle over here as well. And it's definitely a lovely, I just love it with its color variation, and it's so fine. I am pretty sure it is silk. Now I've got a bit I've already cut over here. Let's use that one. So fine that it sometimes sticks to my clothing and just floats away. Okay, I just tie the end. Because it's sort of been all wound around, it does tend to catch a little bit if I try and tie the knots at the top and then slide them down, so I found it's easier to just tie the knot at the very end. So I know we're also going to get to hear what the next Roxy journal or Roxy project will be as well. I was pondering in my comments to Corinne today that I just have this feeling it might be something about like places or travel, because that's a project that I've got burning in my mind at the moment, particularly after something that Alex's mum bought me on the weekend that kind of got me just thinking in a particular direction, and that's something travel and place related. So I am waiting to see if the Roxy girls do give us a project that's around that, because I don't want to kind of do two projects on the same theme. I'm also wondering if they might do something food related, cooking recipe. I don't know. Pondering that. Or whether they'll give us something maybe related, because they did say that I think that they're going to introduce us to someone or someone that we might know of. So I'm guessing that's some sort of slow stitch or textile artist. So I didn't know if it was going to be like an inspired by Fleur Wood, because I know they've all enjoyed doing her courses and online work recently. Don't know. Or what else? I was thinking maybe like a journal of laces or vintage textiles. Not sure. But definitely, yeah, the travel and the places, and also something to capture all my different lovely bits of lace, etc., is some projects that I am pondering as well. I've also got to do the other side of the scrappy snail piece and create my working day persona. So stay tuned for a video on that. I haven't done that yet, but I'll share the video once I do. Sorry, the heating's just come on above me, so if you've heard a big whoosh, that's the sound of the heating coming on. My partner must be cold downstairs. And I've got a little knot, so let's just see if I can untangle the knot, or will I have to... Always the way, you're powering along and then something happens, but that's okay. Don't even know if it's something caught in there or if it's actually, I think it might be a knot, so I think we might just need to cut loose there. Cut that one, cut that end off, pull that through, and then I might need to, can I find the last stitch I did? That's going to be a challenge, isn't it? Or, okay, it's there. So ideally, if I can pull it through, there we go. Then I can probably just do a couple of little stitches over it at the back now, which means I will need to retie a knot in this one. So it's going to be too hard to thread the needle on the other side and get it through and tie it off. So it was good that I was able to pull it to the back. And then if we just do these few stitches over, that will hold it in place. So where was I? Now I've even lost where I was up to. I was over here, wasn't I? Yes. There we go. So I'm just going to put a few stitches in just to hold that one in place, and then we can cut off the ends that we don't need. Okay, I can get rid of those ends in case I catch them and pull them through. Right. I think we're almost there on this leaf. Probably just a few little gaps here and there to fill in. Thought for a moment there I had another knot. I just thought, oh my goodness, surely not. Surely not. That wasn't an intended pun. Surely not. So yeah, it is Wednesday or Thursday here. No, it's Wednesday. It's been a long day. It's been a busy day at work today. I felt like I was running around like a crazy one. Just seemed like every time that I thought I was getting onto something else, it was like then up something else go through that I had to jump and respond to. So it was one of those days. Probably got a lot done, but just not, I don't know, sometimes I just like to feel more in the flow of being able to kind of really focus on something rather than just constantly having to jump. And then you kind of get to the end of the day and it sort of all feels a little bit like a blur. I also wake up with a stiff shoulder and neck, which I'm actually going to turn this around because I'm catching on the top, and so I could either move it around or I can just move it around this way and then I won't catch the thread on it, so I'll do it that way. I think probably just I need to hold maybe like that. So again, I'm just putting some little guiding stitches in part of the way up. A little guiding stitch over here. So yeah, I had a stiff neck, sore neck. It's still a little bit sore now, but I've put ointment on and kind of been doing stretches throughout the day. But I always find when I've got something like that, it just makes me feel a little bit irritated, and probably just a little bit less able to kind of just take on what the day brings. And so that's where sewing is such a lovely thing. Even when you've got a sore neck, it just totally distracts me from it. I wasn't actually thinking about it until I was telling you about my day. Yeah, sewing's such a relaxing thing. I was watching some videos. I was watching Kate from the last Homely House working with her daughter-in-law on a quilt while Kate was doing some of her own quilt blocks. Just so lovely to see their relationship together. I'd watched Anne and Carlos, who are walking Hadrian's Wall at the moment. They're kind of knitters and other crafters, and I think they're actually walking towards to meet up with Kate from the last Homely House, so that's a nice little linkage. And then I had been watching Susanna with her from Vintage Blend Studios with her vintage, I always forget the title of the project, sort of doing a vintage stitchery, vintage sewing techniques maybe. Apologies Susanna if I got that slightly mangled, but jump over to Vintage Blend Studio and you'll be able to see her series of those videos. Definitely want to do something with all my vintage goodies. I sort of save even the wrappers and things in a jar from like vintage threads and cottons, because I do want to incorporate them all in a place. So I've got a whole jar of goodies, plus that massive stash I got recently of a vintage haul from these people that were cleaning out their grandma's house, including the beautiful jar of buttons, of all the mother of pearl buttons that are just gorgeous. Already started using them in some of my projects and sharing some with some stitching buddies, my virtual stitching buddies, because my face-to-face friends aren't really into stitching, although we've got a little Melbourne Stitchers group, so I will have to look to plan a little gathering or something where we can get together. Got some holidays coming up as well, so probably be for me post the holiday, just because I'll be busy a bit before those. And as with holidays, I always look forward to all the different projects that I can work on. I'm going to try and be a bit more compact with what I take this time though. So I might pick out some smaller projects, things like hexies, or maybe stitching together. If I'm working on stitching together all the pieces for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, I might just kind of bring those. I'm not sure yet. Okay. So I think that one's pretty good. And I'll tie it off on the back because it's a bit far. Oh, I think actually, no, I can probably navigate over to that one. Let's try that. Where do I need to get to? I need to get down to there. So I'm going to put my finger there so I kind of know where I need to head. I could have tied it off, but I'm just going to navigate and just catch the thread and stitch it under things as I go. As you can see, there's so much stitchery on the back, which I actually really love. It reminds me almost like the roots or the system that sustains the tree. So I like that. And so then we've got our last two leaves here. So what else? So yeah, contemplating projects, but not wanting to kind of do something that might then end up being one of the Roxy projects. So I'm definitely going to continue with, regardless of what the topic is, I'm sure I will take, I just love having the inspiration of a prompt and then seeing where my brain takes me. And I like the structure as well of having those 2-week periods in which to work. And I kind of have enjoyed that I have made my projects, my prompts sort of stretch out over those 2 weeks, like this one where I'm finishing it on the night that will get the next prompt. It's been nice to kind of have something that time boxes each of the 2-week periods and really luxuriating in the stitching. So I find at the start I'm so excited and just eagerly going through all my fabrics and things and finding sort of what pieces I might audition. But then it's nice to just really, once I've kind of got my plan, to really relax into the stitching. And this one's been lovely because the only bit of fabric is the piece of vintage base that I'm using, but otherwise it's all been stitching, and it has all been, yeah, as I mentioned, the back stitch for the tree itself, and then this stitch, which is really just a straight stitch, but sort of following a pattern for the leaves. And I like that it's just been a really, not mindless, because it has actually been quite a mindful activity for me to work on this, but it's been a very relaxing, repetitive, meditative, I guess might be the word. Not sure. I mean, I guess in meditation you're not thinking, but yeah, it definitely slows my brain, slows my breathing, and just gives me that lovely relaxation. And so I had a lovely time. Actually, I wasn't stitching, but I was ironing some of the fabrics that I'd got from the reverse art truck to put into my little storage boxes while watching Leanne from Leanne's Crafty Cupboard on the weekend, and she was having a lovely time just sort of stitching away. I think her family had gone out. She was feeling a bit poorly, so she was working on a thrifted embroidered tablecloth that she'd got where someone had started the embroidery, but yeah, she's taking it forward. And she was having to do a bit of detective work because she discovered partway through that there wasn't just sort of a single colour of each thread. There was a sort of a different range of shades of that colour, so she kind of had to work out where the different colours were meant to be used. But she had lovely, I just love her videos, very very calm voice and just telling us little reflections and stories. I think they're some of my favourite types of sewing videos where people are sharing their working on their piece, but also just, yeah, sharing little snippets of life. I kind of like to just stitch along to that. It feels like someone's here sitting in my room with me, and I've been enjoying Corinne from To Be Loved Treasures. She's been working on a French piece inspired by and including pieces from her travels. And then tonight I was watching Martha, the lovely Martha Managros, who was sharing work on her rice bag, and she was inspired by Corinne's project to do that, but then had put her own spin and take on that. So lucky to have so many lovely videos to watch, and there's probably a lot more, and there definitely are a lot more that I haven't mentioned in that little dispatch. But yeah, if you certainly search on Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, but also on Slow Stitch, or search out some of those names that I mentioned. And yeah, you're in for a viewing treat. Okay, I'll just get these initial bits done with this thread, and then I'll probably need one more bit of thread to finish off that last flower, and then we can give it a quick iron and look how it looks once it's all done. And we'll see if any further stitches are required. Okay, probably need to, I always get carried away and then I don't want to kind of tie it off when I really should be tying it off. Okay, we seriously are tying it off now, because I will need more thread anyway, so. So it's turned really chilly these last few days. It was quite bitey on my nose this morning when I took Travis out for his walk. It was definitely chilly. Let's see, can I extract a piece from the bundle? That should be, let's see if that's enough to get us through. I've got to properly wind those threads onto something. Now, where has my needle gone? I bet you can see my needle, but I can't see my needle, can I? Or have I flicked it off the table? Hiding under the friction marker. Probably out of your range too, so. Not like those sort of children's performances where they yell out, behind you, behind you. No. I should have tied the knot the other way, but at least that time it didn't catch. Lucky me. Okay. Oops, pulled through. Maybe didn't make the knot big enough, or I'll just not pull it quite as much when I start off. Once you get going, the knot kind of holds itself, so it's okay. And it's got so many stitches that they all kind of hold themselves in place anyway. So I'm just going to go up and do the stitches along the leaf, using the little marks where the needle have gone in and out to create my guides for the angle to create the other stitches. What else to tell you? I don't think I've got any other exciting stories from the weekend. You saw my reverse art truck haul from when I take Travis to the park with this beautiful track. That's where the reverse art truck, or the reverse art shed really, but it's called the reverse art truck, is located. So Travis and I have a lovely time doing a little bit of shopping. It's one of the few places he gets to go shopping anymore. When he was a guide dog puppy in training, he was allowed to go anywhere basically. The only places guide dogs or guide dog puppies in training can't go are operating theatres and commercial kitchens. But everywhere else they are under access rights, and under legislation that prevents discrimination, they are allowed to go. So when Travis was a guide dog puppy in training, those provisions applied to him. And in fact, as part of his training, we had to take him into supermarkets and shopping centres, basically any environment that he might end up going into as a guide dog, if that was the career path that he chose. That was an experience that he had to have, and he had to get to a point of proficiency and comfort to be confident and well behaved in those environments, because obviously in a supermarket you don't want them sniffing the shelves or the dog food aisle. So he was able to walk confidently through, not be scared by any of the noises or people, but also happily walk down a dog food aisle without sniffing the shelves, which is quite amazing when you think about it, that you can have a dog that understands it's working and that it can't be distracted. In Travis's case, he decided though that he loves dogs too much, and that he was a bit distracted by dogs. That was kind of his kryptonite. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but that was the thing that meant that he decided on the pet pathway rather than the guiding pathway, and that's how he came to be a permanent resident and a permanent part of our lives, which is just the best ever thing that happened to us. We still joke that we won Tats Lotto when we got to be Travis's permanent parents, as well as being his puppy raising parents. I think it's a very bittersweet thing for the people that have the pups that do make it into the program, the guiding program. Yeah, obviously so thrilled about what the change and the difference that they'll make to someone's life, but then knowing that that little pup's leaving your home, because there's no way you could do the guide dog puppy raising and not become emotionally attached to the pups. It's impossible unless you had a heart of ice, but I think even then the pups would melt them. Even the ones we've temp cared, you get very attached to them. But yeah, Travis became like our little boy. And he still just brings so much laughter into our lives. I got up this morning a bit later, and he was downstairs, and I could hear him racing up the stairs as he heard me moving upstairs. And as he got to the top of the stairs and I was emerging out of the room, I saw him come flying. So he actually launched himself, I think, from a few steps down and came flying through the air up onto the upstairs sort of living area. It was so funny. It was just that perfect moment. He just timed it perfectly that he was flying through the air as I came out of the room. And then he likes to spin around at a rapid pace almost, and sort of jumping in the air like a bucking bronco. He just gets so excited when mum emerges from the room of a morning. He's a very excitable boy. And then he can spend the rest of the day sleeping, really. So he has that burst of excitement. And even now, this is the weirdest thing. So the puppy distraction was the issue that meant that he didn't go into the guide dog program. Now he goes down to the dog park. He'll sniff the dogs and say hello a bit and maybe have a run around. And then after that, he's kind of like, no, I'm done with those dogs. I'll just have a sniff around of the grass. Thank you. So that's been over recent months. It's so funny because he used to just be besotted with dogs and sort of unable to leave them alone. So let's give it a quick iron. I'll just pop behind me. I've got the iron on, hopefully. And we'll pop it out of its mould. I'm just going to pop up and behind here. Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm just going to give it the quickest of quick irons. Except I don't think my iron is actually on, so we might not give it the quickest of quick irons after all. We'll see how quickly the iron can heat up, but that... And obviously this bit where it's been in the ring will come out with the iron. Let me just check. Yeah, the iron is now on. And there you go. That is let's just have a look at it. You can see all the individual stitches. And what I did when I was creating the tree was just sort of did lines. So I started, and I had the diagram and followed the broad lines for this. And then for the rest of it, I just kind of followed around with the thread and made sure I got different threads next to each other just to get that sense of like branches with sort of different ages of wood and different reflections sort of coming off them. But I'm just really, really pleased with how that's ended up. Let's see if the iron has got hot enough yet. Just give it a bit of a, yeah, it's hot, so we'll be able to show you how these leaves have come up without the black around them. Just give it a basic iron now, and then I'll come back and do the sides properly. So there you go, that is the finished piece. So I am very, very pleased with that, and that's going to be a lovely addition to my Roxy Journal of Stitchery. So take care everyone, and I will see you soon, no doubt. Bye everyone.